Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Thiessen and Auditor Randall. Minnesotans need to be livid at what we're hearing today, and I'm certain that they are. Director Thiessen, you mentioned at one point that MDE received a billing for 2,000 meals or 2,000 people and only had 1,000 names to support it. Did the check get paid for the 2,000 people instead of the 1,000 people?
Director Tyson.
Mr. Chair, Senator Drazkowski, yes, that bill was claimed in full, or paid in full, excuse me.
Senator Drazkowski.
So, Mr. Chair, Director Thiessen, so wouldn't the department, or at least individuals in the department at that point, have known that there was evidence to support 1,000 and they paid 2,000? Is that not prima facie fraud right there in front of the face of a government employee?
Director Tyson.
Mr. Chair, Senator Drazkowski, I'll point you to pages 73 through 75 of our report where we describe the contents of the meal validation documents that MDE collected from Feeding Our Future in the spring of 2021. And, as we say in the report, there is a time in June of 2021 where MDE follows up about some of these concerns, some of the concerns that we identified, but not all of them. And it requested additional documentation from Feeding Our Future stating that it, and I quote, will disallow claims missing documentation if not received by June 18th, 2021, end quote. But according to MDE officials, Feeding Our Future did not respond to the department's request. So despite its threat to disallow claims, it did not.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director. Members, an individual within our government reviewed data like this in these bills that came forward. And if there was information to support 1,000 and the department wrote the check for 2,000, what is that saying about the department, whether they knew there was fraud or not? They were, in this case, if that's the case, it appears they were supporting fraud. Mr. Chair, Director Randall, Auditor Randall and Director Thiessen, could you outline for us what the training requirements are for the individuals within the Department of Education that were responsible for overseeing this program, the Feeding Our Future sponsor, if you will, and even the rest of the program, if you like. But how many employees had to go through the training that included the components that outlined the requirements that that Auditor Randall mentioned earlier, that fraud be reported, and what the consequences are to the individual government employees if they pay out when they know there's fraud going on?
Director Randall.
Thank you, Mr.
Auditor
Chair.
Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Drazkowski. My understanding is that there are about 15 FTE in MDE that support the oversight of this program. I think the department would be best equipped to answer the training that they provide those staff. That is not something that we have at our fingertips. Whether or not they paid a claim for 2,000 meals when there was only evidence of 1,000, whether that's fraud or not, I don't think we can say. And fraud has a very specific definition and meaning, and really it's the courts that can determine whether or not fraud existed. At the very least, we can say that that they were not performing their responsibility. Whether or not it was fraud, I don't know that I would be comfortable saying that. But again, I think the department should best answer the questions about training.
Senator Drazkowski.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Auditor Randall. If the government is selling tires and And the bill for the tire is $100 when the actual cost is $50. Somebody's getting blatantly ripped off. And that's what we have going on here. And I think we go to all kinds of ends to make certain that we don't overgeneralize or convict somebody. But at some point, we've got to call out wrong when we see it. And this is obviously what we're seeing going on here. One last question, Mr. Chair.
Last question,
and
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Director and Auditor. Are you aware, is the FBI doing any criminal investigations within the Minnesota Department of Education? Or are there any criminal investigations that you're aware of that are either going on now, have been going on, or maybe going on in the future within the Minnesota Department of Education regarding this?
Auditor Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Drazkowski. That's not something we can comment on.